This is the Open Global Mind call for Thursday, June 19th, 2025. It is Juneteenth. I had proposed the topic around AI, partly just observing that AI has been affecting our conversations a whole bunch. And we've been trying to figure out like how to use it appropriately, how to bring its powers to bear in a way that doesn't like confuse or distress us in other ways. But we don't have to talk about that. I was just thinking about what was sort of hot for the group. I am happy to bend our conversational path in whatever direction makes sense today. So happy to hear if somebody would like that topic or like something different.
Well, maybe we can combine the two. How is AI helping facilitate the intention of Juneteenth?
Intriguing.
Related to which is how could we use AI to further the intentions of OGM, or how are we
Yeah,
how are we
I
doing
like it.
Because OGM and Juneteenth overlap a little, I would think,
Yes.
even though we are pigment deficient here.
absolutely. Um, cool. Hey, Eric.
Hi, everybody. How about we use our own intelligence?
What?
Yeah.
Ha!
Oh, come on.
What a concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about that?
If you had a magic button and could cause us to talk about any topic that matters to you, what would that topic be? That's to Eric.
Oh, okay. The one I was thinking about is perceptions are reality. And I could illustrate that by showing you the shirt I'm wearing. It says Eric Rangel, Tech Czar. So that's
Yeah.
your
Nice.
perception. Make up whatever story you want, but there's a story behind that.
Yeah.
You are a tech czar.
Rick, I'm just like looking at you going like this as we're talking.
He's jumping up and down.
Yeah, I love the perception is reality talk. That is a very good one.
And there's a damn, the first place I took that topic in my head is back into the generative AI space because they're affecting our perceptions of reality. And this doesn't need to be a conversation about AI. We can somehow skirt it. I'm reminded that, I don't know, somewhere around, I worked for Esther Dyson from 92 to 98.
Mhm.
And in 94-ish, the internet shows up and as a public utility. It existed before as a military research network. But all of a sudden, we can all use it. We can get internet addresses. I start writing about the internet. And she pulls me aside at one point and she says, you know, you've been writing a lot about the internet lately. There's a whole bunch of other topics out there. So why don't you just sort of measure it a little bit, balance it a little bit? I'm like, sounds fine. So then I wrote 2 issues about kids' education and technology because there was a lot of early ed tech and stuff like that going on. But at the end of those issues, and I think a couple other issues, I was like, yeah, but the internet's going to do this and this and this, maybe. And here's what some people are trying. And then a couple months later, Esther says, remember I asked you to write less about the internet? I'm like, yeah. And she says, thank you for ignoring me. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
One of my little anecdotes from back in the day.
So what are we ignoring that we shouldn't be ignoring?
Like reality.
Lily Tomlin said that reality was a highly overrated concept.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I'm noticing since we are now in the post-truth era, or appear to be, or threaten to be, is that there's backlash against different kinds of movements, right? There's the Enlightenment, and then there's Romanticism that happens after it, which is in some sense like, yeah, screw all that reality, and we're going to measure everything in meters and do everything else. We're going to go worry about like how our hearts feel and what beauty is all about, and whatever else. And the danger here is that this backlash against measuring and paying attention to reality could last 100 years. We could be slipping into an era where measurement is out of fashion and doesn't work. And I hate to think that, but it's happened well often before in human history.
If measurement is out of fashion, then the planes will fall from the sky.
Possible. We could end up in idiocracy.
Yeah, and
But there are some real practical impacts already. I mean, for example, here in Bend, we have a company, about 100 employees in the video game business, and they just laid off 30 people. That's 30% of their workforce. And basically, it's because they don't need programmers anymore. So they have a team of 15. There's a senior, I mean, there's like a leader and 2 senior level guys. And then you have 12 programmers. They're gone. Now they're just using AI for that. So that's a real impact which is happening across the wide industries.
The every newsletter, which I've shared with the list occasionally, is speculating about the first one-person billion-dollar company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a draft post that I might get done in the next day or so about basically comparing, and sorry to go back into the topic, comparing generative AI to a flesh-eating bacteria.
Huh.
And the first sentence of the post is, don't get me wrong, I actually love what's possible here. However, the effects on jobs is different from all the previous revolutions. And I talk about how, when automobiles show up, they wipe out all the people who are raising horses, like peak horses, 1910 in the US, apparently. But all the people who are raising horses, cleaning up after horses, shoeing horses, feeding horses, all horse carriages, all that kind of stuff just melts, just starts to go away fast. What was the name of the
it's no longer there.
Pardon? Yeah, I mean, once you don't need horses for drayage and personal transportation, then the numbers change dramatically, absolutely, totally dramatically. And then all of a sudden we have gas stations and car manufacturing and car repair and tires and all those things come up as brand new jobs. And I don't know that that's happening. I think jobs will have to be reconstituted as the tasks melt, but I don't know that that creates new employment of the same kind as previous revolutions. Yeah, the famous picture of the street, the Fifth Avenue in 1900 and 1913. I'm just explaining, Gil, the picture you posted to the chat. In the first photo on Easter.
I can share it up so people can see it. Hold on a
Well,
second.
thanks. Yeah. Share it up on screen. In the first photo on the left, there's one car, and then in 1913 there's one horse-drawn carriage. So in 13 years, same street, same day of the year. I think both are shot on Easter Parade Day.
It's Fifth Avenue in both cases.
Yep, Fifth Avenue on Easter Day.
Yeah, and it's an indication of how fast things change, even then when things didn't change fast, and now, oh my God, right?
Yep.
So I'm not worried about the job transition if there's universal basic income, but there's not.
Mike.
I was just going to challenge you to a naming contest. You mentioned the scenario, the backlash to AI, the rejection of data, the rejection of analysis, even the rejection of truth. Do you have a nice 3 or 4 syllable name for that scenario? I mean, if you really want people to start fearing that future, you need to have a good buzzword. If that's what that's what the art of the long view taught me.
Well, I think there's sort of 2 sides to that. Do you want the 3-word scenario dread title, or do you want the 3-word scenario love title? Because I can easily see that marketed as a desirable world.
I want the 3-word scenario that encompasses both of them.
I think those are very different marketing pitches.
Memorable and Googleable, so that when we start talking about it, people will find that thread.
Proposals? Do you want to just start?
I was asking because nothing came to mind immediately, but it probably is. There's probably an echo of the 1960s. Tune in, tune out. Dark Ages is already taken.
Anybody else?
The only word that came to me, which was trying to be non-biased was Computrol
Computrol.
Hmm.
for
But those,
discussion.
those are the people who are trying to gain power now. I thought those were the people we're trying to reject.
That's why it opens a discussion.
Yeah, it's a good, I mean, it's a distinctive Googleable term, so I like that.
Apologies for just stepping in. Can in one sentence, can we capture what we're trying to accomplish?
Jerry described a period after the AI era, after we reject all that AI was trying to give us, and after we reject data and reject truth, and things kind of slow down and phase out. We could have a scenario that would be a little like the Dark Ages, or a little bit like the 1960s in Haight-Ashbury, or on some remote communes.
You mean like Japan rejecting firearms?
Ah, that's an interesting analogy.
Does everybody know about this?
All to preserve the culture of the samurai.
So Japan basically found these weapons. Japan had the best steel makers back in the day. They because of making katanas, they had artisans who were really, really good at steel. So they started making really, really good matchlocks and flintlocks and sort of early rifles. And then they decided that this was too easy. You could stand off at 100 yards and kill somebody. Although they weren't rifled, so they weren't that accurate, but they were doing pretty well. And so they cartelized the rifle, the handgun manufacturing business. They basically said they said you had to be a member of this cartel to make handguns. Then they reduced the number of companies to one. Then they put that one out of business. And for 200 years, until Commodore Perry shows up in the harbor, they do not make and get rid of guns.
Peasants could also not own katanas. And so a bunch of the martial arts of open hand techniques and staff techniques developed so that peasants could protect themselves against samurai. So there's always a pendulum. But for me, the parallel of that Japan story and now is that technology serves existing power relationships mostly. Mostly, and that's what we're seeing now, is AI being used to it sort of pulled in both directions. Great empowerment down, so the notion of the billion-dollar one-person company. Great empowerment up, the consolidation of power and control of data, and the theft of copyright, and the agglomeration of the muscle of OpenAI and the other guys. Let me just throw in another concern. That's why I waved my hand. Is that we're facing the possibility of garbage in, garbage out to the extreme. Because as the AI output grows, AIs are going to be trained on AI output more, and you have this reflexive loop that is going to take post-truth to a whole new dimension.
And there's a whole narrative about the Ouroboros of data, of generative engines creating new data that is then fed into the engines and then corrupts all data. There's a thought in my brain that says was 2024 peak knowledge, because we had a golden age where we sort of trusted what was in the search engines and could find stuff. Plus,
I think we're looking at this too much from a negative side. Of course, any new technology like this is, first of all, misused, and then it sort of normalizes itself. But the current development phase in AI is the agentic the agent development. So you see a lot of individual subcontractors, individual agents, individuals, professionals, who are using AI and trying to figure out, how to apply it. So I'm working with SCORE, which is sort of a volunteer consultancy. I just certified as a mentor, And literally everyone you talk with is trying to figure out how to apply AI to enhance themselves, to become more efficient and to become more productive. And so what you begin to learn is that AI is a tool. It's a bunch of algorithms, and you have to set it up, and you have to program it basically to serve what it is you want to do with it. And so that's sort of slowly sinking in, that the configuration of an OpenAI has an amazing way, where you can personalize this thing, and you can set up GPTs for your specific profession and for your. My son just used it. He just landed another job as Lucid as head of talent acquisition and branding, and so he went through. He went through an interview process. He used the AI and programmed it as the Lucid hiring agent and test and played interview with this thing. So there are kinds of positive ideas of what you can do with it, and the challenge really is when you go into what I would call a curated knowledge base. That's something I'm just developing for food and agriculture. What is best applied knowledge in your specific spectrum? Well, then you have Monsanto Bayer also develop a curated knowledge base and making that available to farmers. Well, guess where that is going, obviously. It leads into a completely different direction. But these things are really tools, first and foremost. And they are quite democratic. What you can do as an individual with them is amazing. And for a $20 per month subscription, you have an amazing power at your fingertips to apply. So that's the positive side. And yes, there is Grok and Elon Musk and and Meta is now collecting data like there is no tomorrow. And they're not using that for beneficial reasons. But there is this pro and con, and so I just really think we need to focus on what we could be doing with this, and to support democracy and democratic, decentralized power base.
Thanks, Klaus. Dave.
I just have, I just want to provide some maybe questions about some of the assumptions that kind of.
Please.
So number one, why historically, it doesn't seem to me that technology tends to support existing power structures. It's historically, technology seems to me to be a destabilizing force, tends to disrupt existing power structures. That's
you could ask the Catholic Church about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. The horse automotive thing did create a lot of new jobs, and we can see that in hindsight, but that doesn't mean that is how it looked to people at the time that disruption was happening. Those things came about. I mean, we can look back and say, oh yeah, we'll create a lot of new jobs, and this one won't. But I think our imagination of the future is always going to be constrained by the assumptions of our history. So we don't know. I don't know. I don't think any of us can imagine what those new jobs might look like, if there are going to be more jobs. But I don't know that if you go back to 1900, that those horse carriage driving, horseshoeing people had a vision for what the jobs might be for them either. So I'm just,
no, not at all. Yeah.
I'm just kind of, rubbing on the assumptions a little bit there. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And I'm trying to puzzle harder on that. The thing at least that last question you just posed, which is sometimes the new jobs aren't just not visible. We just can't see what they're going to be, right? And there's also something I need to research into more called the lump of labor fallacy. which is about how we sort of quantize labor, make assumptions about pricing and other kinds of things. I don't fully understand it. I can't really explain it. I haven't even asked an LLM to explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. But we're not necessarily able to imagine the things that are going to show up. I'm just looking at some of the sort of the nature of the shift right now, where one of my beliefs is that right now Gen AI eats tasks, not jobs. And so it can easily munch up a task of there's a report that some intern used to take a week to do, to go run around and collect up a bunch of spreadsheets and then write a summary report about it, to put into the marketing report or something like that. That can now be automated and cost nothing. That task just vanishes, right? Well, you could find something else for the intern to do, but how many things are you going to find? We get into sort of this funny little loop of questions that I'm very interested in. And if anybody's found essays or studies that are going deeper into that, let us know and put them into the chat. Stacy.
Yeah, I just have a question based on the questions that Dave asked that might change things. Back then, was passive income as big a part of wealth as it is today?
Passive income? I mean,
Well, because
kind
I'm
of
thinking,
depends.
well, let me just,
Yeah.
to make it a little clearer, I'm thinking that it wasn't. And I'm thinking the fact that it is going to alter the thinking of people in power that tend to have a lot of that passive income. So that's where I was going.
Thank you. Shimon, you are muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, I have very little doubt that generative AI is going to cause immense social change in the near term, certainly around jobs. Within the healthcare system, which I know well, I think it's going to have profound change in how people view themselves in terms of their identity, plus also in terms of their ability to earn a living the way we know it. So I was actually very interested in hearing more like Gil's point about needing a discussion about universal basic income and also other economic framework that will deal with the changes that are likely to occur, because they're not just going to start and stay social. They're going to start and then expand and be more political. I think if I remember correctly, even the new Pope named himself Leo because that was part of what was happening when Pope Leo the previous was focusing on the changes in the Industrial Revolution. Another kind of data point for me is seeing what happened as a result of industrialization, globalization, and the tech changes in Appalachia and kind of Rust Belt, which eventually certainly contributed to the opiate epidemic, but in many quarters, many people believe was laying the foundations for Trump and other beliefs and, populist beliefs. So I'm very interested in what can be done at this point to create, I wouldn't even call it a safety net, but I think, Jerry, to your or someone else, the one word, I think it should be abundance question mark, because I think we are with the possibility of abundance. Are we willing to go there? What we need to do to get there? If not, obviously the changes are going to be very different. And in addition to UBI, I don't know how many of you follow, what's his name, Young. He has a new party, the Forward Party, Andrew Yang. He talks about time banking. There is other people talking about sovereign fund and taxing data. There's other people that are talking about like investment in every newborn That's Ackerman's point of view. I think there's a lot of people that are making suggestions about how to deal with moving forward. But in my mind, there's no question that we're going to get through very profound changes. And I'm not talking about, Palantir and the surveillance state, military, and things of that kind. I think the most dangerous part is the social displacement that's going to take place.
Um, thank you for all those ideas. In particular, one that's been standing up for me a lot is this notion of abundance, where Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson just recently wrote the book titled Abundance, just published this year, which is having a big effect in the Democratic Party, apparently. And basically, I need to consolidate my thinking a little bit about this in my brain, in both my brains, but there's also a book about abundance by the Singularity guys and so forth. And these are very different approaches to what abundance means. And I don't know that I agree with them. So the Ezra Klein book seems to say, hey, we've overregulated everything. And if we get the regs out of the way, we could get abundance because the regs are actually preventing us from getting more housing, making more stuff, making people happy. And there's other approaches. But I think the abundance topic could make a great OGM call, just sort of collecting up different perspectives on abundance and our critiques of them and seeing how that works. Which reminds me, I have to host a call next week at this time. So next week, we will do it. We'll have to do a non-Jerry call, however you'd like to arrange it. But just before I forget to mention it. Gil.
A surrogate.
Yeah.
Yeah, weaving back through the last several comments, Shimon, abundance ? And shared ? is how I would frame it. So the abundance, whether both the Ezra Klein book and the Singularity people elide the fact that our current abundance is built on top of a massive subsidy of the extraction and despoilation of the regenerative living capacity of the planet. So we're like Wile E. Coyote running off the cliff and not looking down. That's one issue. The other is the shared, is that, and back to the question, Dave, of what happens with new technology. The who is in the driver's seat changes. The nature of the driver's seat seems to be being reinforced. We're seeing massive increase in concentration of wealth over the last 40 years, and the AI game has given us even more of that. So while it puts a lot of power in the hands of all of us, and maybe there will be single company billionaires, the consolidated power at the top gets ever stronger. And so is there a way to have abundance and prosperity that is shared across the entire human population? Don't know, but that's one of the questions in there for the abundance story with me. As I read the history of technology, it's both disruptive and reinforcing. And part of the brilliance of modern capitalism is that it's able to change without change. So lots of stuff changes, and certain key things don't change at all because it's like an amoeba absorbing anything around it and turning it into its own shape and form. UBI may be the most disruptive piece of the puzzle, but it's going to have a very uphill battle for political and economic and moral ideological reasons.
It has a lot of strange bedfellow supporters.
A lot of strange bedfellow supporters. Andrew Yang has been cozying up to Elon Musk about third party. Talk about strange bedfellows.
Whoa.
Yeah, man.
Jesse, I don't know how you can follow that.
I often ask that of myself when you all talk. So I've been sharing this where you could have one job for many, many years, 30, 40, 50 years at a time, and a company would take care of you with pensions and being able to retire with actually money. They're not going to do that anymore. They're not able to. And so one job now is one point of failure. And when you lose it, your job, you experience economic hardship in your family, if not economic chaos. And so we're shifting to have to figure out how to have multiple streams of revenue. And so that looks like temp work, it looks like contract work, and it's very, very hard because you have to kind of juggle a lot of different projects at the same time, and sometimes it's really difficult to project manage multiple jobs. Yet that's kind of how we're being forced to pivot. And so creating a soft landing for that kind of shared space, I think is really important, but it can't be this gigantic one. It needs to be within a trusted peer network and a closed feedback loop mechanism. So that's why we created a map of the OGM people that have joined in Day Balancer, and I can share that again. But in our community, and we have open doors with other communities like OGM and Day Balancer, and then all these other networks of networks. We're trying to figure out how to open those networks so that you can move from one bar, Joe's bar, to Sally's bar, and to Dave's bar. And we're talking about economic resilience. And I know, Jerry, you don't like the word resilience because it kind of infers or alludes to having to come back from hardship. But we're all kind of experiencing that. So we're talking about economic resilience and what does non-debt based monetary systems look like, and what does collective closed feedback mechanism look like, and how do we innovate those economic models that would be sustainable within that group so that we can start building off of that. So love this discussion, defining how we build economic resilience for ourselves, but also not just for ourselves, but the people that we care about, like this room right now. That's what I'd love to bring home.
Thanks, Jesse. You're also touching some big issues I've always been curious about, which are when we say economic resilience, or we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Like, I think one of the top number 1 or 2 is poverty. It's like people should not be poor, and I wish we didn't have to have money to stay alive. I wish we could figure out ways that people could be comfortable and healthy and have shelter and be well fed while sharing resources, while, whatever it might be. I don't know what the alternate arrangements are, but we can't even imagine the alternate arrangements. They are so out of our scope of possibilities that we don't go there. So we think of UBI because we're gonna have to patch the hole with money we send to people who can no longer make money because they've been AI'd out of the economy. I hope that does not become a verb. And I don't know if anybody else likes that question. Let me know, and we'd like to go into it. Jesse, real quick.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to say that I think that we've been normalized to self-promote because we have to make money. And what I'd like to design is a space where the organization name is that you join is clean water, clean food, clean soil, clean air. That's the organization name. And then the team is decarbonization or what have you, that feeds into that outcome. And then the role that you have is marketing or tech or HR, and you contribute to that team. But I think that if we just change our models a little bit visually in a data visualization, we can start feeling like we're more of a connected ecosystem rather than trying to figure it out ourselves and self-promote on LinkedIn, self-promote on YouTube, self-promote our projects. And even though they're great intentions to help the world and people, it's a lot of decentralized work, and it's a lot of noise, and it's exhausting.
Totally agree. Thank you. Sean?
I'd like to just share two perspectives here. One is The Diamond Age by Neil Stevenson. The underclass in the Diamond Age shows us basically the natural evolution of capitalism is currently conceived, where what is happening for the way abundance is being experienced by the poor in that fiction is that basically the the essentials are available via the welfare machine, essentially. the matter printer kind of gizmo that
Matter compilers, yeah.
Sorry?
Matter compilers, I think he calls them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and so that's one take on abundance without too much evolution of capitalism. And another take here is what is it? Is Sam Altman's own WorldCoin effort, where they famously got a disturbing object called the orb. One communes with the orb by applying one's eyeball to one of its orifices, and then has one's humanity registered and turned into a number. And so basically, what the orb machine does is verify your humanity. And it does this so that there can be no faking, to minimize the risk to the system of a UBI-ish model where you get WorldCoin for being human. And presumably he has set this system up in advance of a day where the source of capital, the winner of capitalism, is basically an artificial superintelligence, and that it pays out to people whose eyeballs are persuasively human. Over.
I had forgotten that was a Sam Altman venture. I had sort of forgotten about the orb, but not entirely. But I had completely misplaced in my head that was Sam Altman, and that is chilling considering what else he's been up to since then that has been far more successful. Holy beans. Okay, thanks for that. I might need a. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Did you have another one you wanted to put in?
No, those are the
Those are the
two ways that that this can evolve, neither of which is especially idyllic.
Nice understatement. Pause.
Yeah, I wanted to focus a little bit more short term and immediate. It's what's happening right now. It's not just AI. The current budget cuts that are rolling through are sort of partially under the radar, apparently. So, as an example, I'm working, with the local school system, catering, with the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance, with Family Kitchen, which serves 20,000 meals for free a month, and the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance, which supports 58 really small farmers. And what they have in common is they're all losing their grant money. So the High Desert Food and Farm Alliance, for example, gets almost $1 million in grants per year, and they're doing a lot of free work. For example, they clean the fields, after harvest, and organize a bunch of volunteers and bring that food to the local food bank. The food bank, by the way, just lost their money to purchase from local farmers. There was this local food program. So these small farmers, all of a sudden, they don't have a market to sell into, because the food banks and the schools and everybody is now scaling down to buy as cheap as basically buy calories instead of nutrition. So these impacts, I just observed, that section of the market, but it's happening universally across the board, where these NGOs and nonprofit groups, and a lot of them do, Meals on Wheels, for heaven's sake, right? Here the local group has 500 clients where they bring food to them, and they just lost their money. So the impact of these cuts are not processed, and the people who are in this are shell-shocked, right? I'm trying to, get them to develop contingencies, and what can you do to monetize yourself, and what are the options here? And they can't. They're just totally frozen in thinking that this can't happen, right? This is going to reverse itself somehow. Washington Post just had an article a couple of days ago where the Trump administration froze all grants. They just refused to pay them out. and what are you going to do kind of thing is, whether that's Congress protests or what have you, it's just happening. So they're taking money out of the base of pyramid economy with that has an immediate multiplier effect, right? If you take $1,000 away from someone who is on food stamps, that money is immediately stops rolling, and you give that $1,000 to someone who now is a millionaire. I mean, they don't even know it happened. So this transfer of what the current budget planning envisions is a disaster for the base economy, for local communities, for small businesses, and the entire infrastructure around it. And I think that's far more short-term impactful than anything happening in AI.
May you live in interesting times. Shimon.
Yeah, regarding Klaus's point in abundance, I think we're so focused on abundance being part of kind of a material aspects of it. I know recently in some of the medical literature, there's been interesting kind of backlash about some of the articles looking at people's well-being just from a material point of view without looking at the spiritual community and various other aspects of what gives people meaning and purpose. So when I talk about abundance, one of the things that needs to be taken into consideration is spiritual, psychological, and also community-based abundance. And one of the things that I think we need to look at, as you were saying, Klaus, and I'm wondering when you say you're trying to help these people cope with their kind of, I guess, immediate, trauma that they're experiencing, what is it that communities can do together? And what is it that, because what happened around the opiate epidemic is that those communities, their social institutions, not just their economic, institution, but social institution, everything around them just stopped working. And, I think we all need purpose in American society. So much of it is tied into our jobs. And certainly within the groups that most of us know, that means going through a very kind of predetermined, educational system with a destination. And that's, I think, all going to change. And if you look at articles like graduates right now from college are starting to have difficulty finding jobs. So I think that's going to be the big issue. And I think, again, the abundance is more of a spiritual agent-based abundance rather than just housing and things of that kind. So while I agree with some of what Ezra is talking about and Mark Blake is talking, I mean, there's a lot of people talk about because that's the model, that's the paradigm that we have. And I know that in this group, Daniela Meadows is well known. And to change the system, you need to change the paradigms. And I think what we're all talking about is the same paradigms without thinking of how to change them.
Shimon, thank you very much. That's you reminded me of also Juliet Shore's
Right.
preferred word instead of abundance. She says plenitude. And she wrote a book in 2010, which then changed the title of From Plenitude to True Wealth. I just posted both titles in the chat. But Juliet is like, yeah, abundance is often too much. You don't really want abundance. You want people to have enough. And the word enough is maybe a nice word, but not enough of a word here, because most people don't want to have enough. They want to have a lot, which is a kind of one of the negative marks of our era. Is that we're not content with enough. We don't. One of April's books, 8 Superpowers in Flux, is Know You're Enough, by which she means you're not, you are, but she kind of means the other one too, right? Because we don't know when our tank is full. We've been conditioned to believe that our tank can never be filled because we have unlimited wants and needs, which consumerism grants us. It's magic gift. Rick.
Yeah, thank you. Just to build on what Siobhan was talking about, two things came to mind. One was the documentary Join or Die about social capital, which is a great documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth seeing. And the other one is Adam Grant's book called Hidden Potential. I share some of your reservations about the connotations about using abundance as a frame. And, I think thinking about flourishing or something equivalent to it is a more, say, spiritual goal. And this is something that I've been playing around with some time. I've been spending a lot of time in indivisible groups because this is a fairly intellectual group. And one of the things that, certainly as a role as a family doctor, I deal with all classes, mostly lower socioeconomic classes. So I've had a lot of experience of how to deal with people who are impoverished, trapped, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's my family physicians try and redress inequity, which is impossible because the hospital-centric system is designed not to address it because it can't. It's totally incompetent at dealing with health inequities because it's outside the healthcare system predominantly. But they take on this noble notion that they're going to do this on, which is just, marketing hype that hospitals do. So I'm somewhat skeptical about that. But what I've learned from it is it's really delicate trying to talk with people at a sixth grade reading level because the way we talk, and I get called out, big words, et cetera, and so what I've been doing is, and I just did one this morning, and I can share it, where I took something that was in my language. Then I went to AI and did a whole series of searches. Says, can you reduce this down to a sixth grade reading level? So that's an AI elaboration. And then I created an AI summary page, which I did, which sort of is much shorter. It's a lot of details, but anybody who wants to track and actually learn what I'm doing with this. And then I went to Notebook LM and asked it I copied all the elaborate AI content and put it into LM. And then I said, can you explain this at a sixth grade reading level? And it did a pretty good job. And so I'm using these as learning exercises. I've done four trial balloons with this group so far, but I actually want to have a longitudinal course because I was just micro testing these things, and they're called micro dialogue sessions where people dialogue for 10, 15 minutes, come back, debrief, and then go back again and share what they learned from their previous dialogue. So it's really cultivating a sort of a peer-to-peer enabled, what I'm calling human AI enabled emancipatory neo-learning. It's a mouthful, call it HEN for short. And the idea behind it is to actually enhance people's abilities to understand, and we all are indoctrinated to various degrees. The United States is polarized by indoctrination, by Fox News. And you have, it goes across the spectrum, but Fox News is cream of the crop of indoctrination, along with all its accomplices, and enabled by corporate advertising, which enables this mass delusional state, or what I call deranged Trump mass psychosis. And interesting enough, I've got a lot of pushback from people about using those words. And I learned so much from people who had very strong opinions against it. And part of it came from people who are empaths who, didn't like the idea of name calling, stigmatizing, yada, yada, yada. And I was using it not in a psychiatric framework. I was using it as a socio-political phenomenon at a systemic level. And I was trying to reframe it saying, no, people are victims of this indoctrination. So the whole idea of abundance, if you want to use that frame, or what Adam Grant calls hidden potential, we've got so much hidden potential that we waste and squander by our totally inadequate educational system. So I'll put something in there, and I've just published one of 4 articles that have been inspired by working with Indivisible about how to create neo-learning systems. And I'm testing it out and see where it goes, because we have to have better neo-learning systems enabled by AI. And Jerry, I agree with you. I think that it has huge potential, and I agree with Gil. It's got huge dystopian potential as well. And the question is, will the good outsmart the bad and the ugly? And I'm done. Thank you.
Rick, what did you call it? Was it Trump psychosis, Trump something psychosis?
Yeah, Trump deranged mass psychosis.
So there's something interesting going on here. Hold on, I'm just typing in. Oops, got to spell it right.
Deranged
Damn it.
Trump mass psychosis. You'll see I've published articles about it on
Is it
Substack.
deranged Trump psychosis? What's the right arrangement of words?
Deranged Trump, because he is deranged, mass psychosis.
Cool.
And I'm using it not in the psychiatric framework. I'm using in the original Greek meaning of the word, which translates roughly to mental derangement. So it's a socio-political phenomenon, not an individual psychiatric diagnosis.
Of course. So a couple of thoughts on it. One is there is a term, Trump derangement syndrome, which is used by the far right
I
to
know.
describe lefties who've gone off hook because of what Trump is doing. So you're kind of wandering in the same space, but using it in the opposite sense, right?
Exactly. I'm saying they're projecting their shit on us, and I'm throwing their shit back in their face.
So one of the critiques of the far right and the right of the left is that the left is engaged in a similar programming project of humanity. That that the left doesn't notice it, doesn't realize the series of narratives that have been training them, I'll say roughly maybe us here, that are quite intense and that are also backed by huge commercial interests, that like everything you said right now, critiquing the right, is held up by the right against the left.
Exactly. That's the cancer culture war. Absolutely. And you have to deconstruct both sides. And that's what emancipation is about.
Cool. And maybe we should have a call about emancipation and the meaning that just
I think
emerged
emancipation
from this.
learning is something that we have not learned how to scale up. And if we're going to allow people to develop their own personal autonomy and sovereignty over their own being, opposed to being puppets to neoliberalism, yada yada, then we have to be able to have an educational system that helps them develop the metacognition skills so that they aren't victims of indoctrination across all political philosophies.
And I think it's nice how we have landed on emancipation after an hour's conversation on Juneteenth.
Perfect. Thanks for great point, Jerry.
Cool. Stacy, please.
Yes, I just wanted to say, Rick, I love that. I think, though, I would probably take the word Trump out and put mass in, because it really is, it's a psychosis that takes over the group you're surrounded by. And as Jerry pointed out, it does happen in different places for different reasons. And I think that it's more about that phenomena than just the one man. Although I agree, initially, there was a very big difference. Like now, in my opinion, people on the left that are like blocking out anything Trump has to say, to me, it's totally understandable. But I can't say it was always like that in the beginning, because that's not what I witnessed. I witnessed a lot of people just following their programming based on who they were surrounded by. And I would want to put more emphasis on the way all of us are susceptible to everything around us.
I agree with you entirely. And Carl Jung talked about mass hysteria. He had a way of explaining things in those times as well. And I think it speaks to the complex psychology of how tribes or mobs evolve and how people I mean, what I'm observing in this indivisible group, and it's really fascinating, I feel like I'm an anthropologist there, is that there is a group of social cohesion that's going on there that actually is very, it's more like Brownian motion. It's not galvanized at all. And there's tremendous value about being in that group. The guy who runs it's been doing 5 years, beautiful man. People get a lot of emotional support, sense of belonging out of it. But I'm sort of a little bit of an evocateur saying, well, you know, we've got to come out and speak about our differences. There are significant differences within this group. And if we can't have healthy disagreements amongst ourselves, there's no way in hell that you're going to be able to do it with a MAGA supporter. And so, I mean, and that's the resistance. It's the antibody reactions I'm getting by bringing this. I just shared the fourth in the series of this with a group this morning, and I just said, you know, here's something you might be interested. And actually, a few people, so I could tell they were shifting, and I thought, just little tiny shifts. A woman who's diametrically opposite to opposes this idea gave me a great suggestion today, and I thought, and I said, thank you very much. It was great, you know. So, you know, how do you create that? You know, how do you use that creative tensions where you seem to have differences that are irreconcilable? They appear that way, but if you keep on working at it and do small little things at a time, this is just chipping away at trying to wake both the woke and the unwoke. It's on both sides. Except I think the MAGA woke do a better job than the progressive wokes. Anyway, I've said enough. Thank you.
That's right. Thanks, Rick. The approach I'm trying to take is to ignore the horrible left-right divide conversations and to try to offer productive things people could do together. And I mean ignore them, like not call it out, not whatever. And I occasionally probably will slip and fall and call it out because I can't help myself, because that's where it is. But I feel like the productive way forward is just offering people ways of rebuilding the social scaffolding that keeps society, and it helps us make collective decisions. And in order to make collective decisions, we gotta somehow be in relationship and trust one another some. I don't know all the ways to get there, but that's where I'm trying to aim my writing and thinking and posting. Stacy.
I agree with you. What about if we tried to help people to recognize when fear was being used as a motivator? I mean, it's used in sales all the time, and I would start there.
Yep.
If I can just quickly combat the issue of calling in, calling out, there's a book by Loretta Ross. If you haven't come across it, you really need to listen to that book. It's recently come out. And she goes to great length saying the vast majority of calling out is inappropriate, particularly if it's coming from your amygdala hijacking. It just perpetuates the cancer culture wars. But she does say there is appropriate calling out. So if there's a bully, you need to call out a bully and hold them accountable. And so, you know, there is an appropriate role. And I don't know what the point of it is. Calling it deranged Trump mass psychosis is a paradoxical intervention because it does exaggerate. I mean, Shimon, if you're, you know, paradoxical interventions, the right use them all the time. The left don't know how to use them in a moral way. And the question is, you exaggerate the truth just a little to disturb the equilibrium of people's protected cognitive dissonance. They don't like cognitive dissonance. And so if you can just give a little something that makes them doubt, that is a phenomenal achievement.
We are right at the hour mark. If anybody wants to propose a shift in our focus or a twist in the road or something else, it would be a good thing. Us.
Yeah, so Shimon raised the issue of Donald Meadows, where a system changes. When if a system needs to change, you need to start at the paradigm level. And that means story, right? Storyline. And so how do we engage with storylines? Because right now the story is controlled by a right-wing machine, really, that is amazingly coordinated and effective. While we debate universal income and different forms of governance and so on and so on. So we are the alternative is circling around many different options, but really doesn't offer a vision, really doesn't offer something tangible that you can grab onto. So if paradigm, and meaning story, is the challenge to engage in, we're not doing it. And the efforts that are underway are widely dispersed, not coordinated. There is no coordination visible. Now, while on the right wing you have from whether that's Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and the whole Vance and the whole group there are really walking in lockstep, right? And so we are like a bunch of cats moving into all directions. So how do we create a story that that comes together in some form and shape to coalesce into something that everyone can latch onto and multiply and advance? I think that's really our challenge here.
Just briefly, if I can step in for a second, Shimon, I want to try to tie a couple things together before I forget them, and they're on their way out of my brain right now. One of the things I think of a lot is the resacralization. What if we could help people see one another and their planet as sacred? Would that cause a paradigm shift that might cause a lot of trickle-down behaviors in other places? And I want to tie that to the thought I kind of started this conversation with, which was that Romanticism was kind of backlash against the Enlightenment, et cetera, that by trying to say, no, 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 science is right, you all are stupid, we're locking down on the current debate and losing it quickly. And facts are melting, and oh my God, and who knows where it's going to go. But resacralization is pushing in the same direction in some sense. And I'm not sure about this, but I'm just thinking out loud. But could there be a way to create a movement that actually uses the energy present in the world positively to say, hey, let's all come back in and honor each other more, et cetera, et cetera? That has juice for me. Shimon?
Yeah, Jerry, I'll pick up a little bit on your juice and address the question about paradigms and what I think needs to be done. I totally am disagreement about the whole question of Trump derangement syndrome and all these people. Just a waste of energy to focus on that, in my psychiatric opinion. But I think that what you're talking about, sacralization and finding something that unites people at their human level, is really what's needed. And I'll tell you now to the paradigm. I mean, what are the paradigms that we have? In terms of democracy, the paradigm that people have is majority rules and things of that kind. What if we got back to a paradigm that really looks at what the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution about? That the role of the government is to help human flourishing. And I think that then when you translate that into, okay, so how did the Constitution evolve to create the architecture to allow that to happen, you start seeing the role of your Congress people in local areas. And then you start asking, so what happened between that and all of a sudden you have an executive royal president? So then the question becomes, in terms of coherence and then into action, instead of just individual and instead of these mass demonstrations, what can we do in our community to engage with our representatives to do what they need to do? So that's one paradigm, which I call the citizenship, how to reclaim it. The other one It's called salutogenesis, which is instead of continuously looking at what causes pathology, like the healthcare system does, what can we do to focus on what causes health? And there's a huge difference in terms of activity that are based on people's mindset. Okay, what causes health? What's a system that can create health? And that goes to Klaus and I have had many conversations about it in terms of communities, in terms of water, in terms of air, in terms of the social thing. I mean, think about it. I mean, the work that I'm doing now, I'm going back to Kennedy's speeches about going to the moon, Bobby Kennedy's speeches about poverty. I'm talking about Martin Luther King, Elvis singing about a boy being born in the Chicago ghetto. This is 1960. We're talking now in 2024, where or 25, where have we come to? And it's exactly the same problem. So we really need to talk about the speaking about moonshots to a place where we focus on health. And how to translate that, that's what I'm doing in terms of taking what the government is doing. For example, that Maha Kennedy commission to make our chronic illness in children less, why don't we create a citizens commission to look at actually what makes our children happy or healthy or thriving as the Constitution and Declaration promised them to be? So to resacralize or whatever,
It's hard to say. Sorry.
sacralization.
Resacralize, sacred, sacred.
Yeah, the question is, and I think we're all united around, maybe Vance and the right wing are about family values. The left wing is about how to get more social benefits to communities. Something that, again, this goes to the abundance of Ezra Klein, that there's never an outcome that's going to be measured. There's enough system today that every little kid born today anywhere in the US can have the foundations they need materially to thrive. There is. When you think about housing benefits, you think about work, I mean, huge money. So what's stopping it? If you start breaking it apart, you'll see that what Ezra Klein talked about housing, you'll see the same thing in social, structure. There's unions, there's all these different things. So I am actually initiating this Citizens Commission, and I do want to thank everyone in this group to kind of tolerate my presentation a few months ago. And it was extremely helpful. The feedback I got is extremely helpful. I changed my whole orientation, and perhaps at some point I can present it again. But I think that's the paradigm that needs to happen. That's where the energy needs to go. And I think that we know enough that people look for purpose and meaning. And then they try to figure out how do they encapsulate what their day to day is like based on that.
Thank you, Shimon. It's great.
We don't have time to have a healthy disagreement about the show. But I'll say where I agree with you and where I disagree with you. From a psychiatric perspective, I agree with it's a total waste of time to talk about Trump deranged mass psychosis. It is not a psychiatric diagnosis. It doesn't belong in psychiatry, and it's an individual lens that can be used in pejorative ways. So that's my agreement. Where I disagree with you is in terms of paradigm shifts. And this is where Buckminster Fuller's quote, I think, is incredibly naive, which is if you build a new paradigm, the old paradigm goes away. I don't believe that. I think he was politically naive, and if that were true, we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in now. So what we need to do is we need to co-construct a new paradigm that concurrently deconstructs the old one. And the neoliberal influence is so pervasive and so toxic that we have to have ways of being able to dismantle it. Now, if I could get by without using that as a socio-political diagnosis, a way of emancipating people from an educational system that perpetuates inequities where people believe Fox News en masse, then we're not going to do very well. So I totally salute salutogenesis, but salutogenesis is not enough unless you can deconstruct the shadow and dark sides of what's sabotaging what you're trying to do. We don't have time to have a long discussion here. This could be a lengthy debate. This is not designed for what I would call generative dialogue. And so that's what we need more of. Generative dialogue is far more, I think, an effective way of dealing with and understanding why we differ in our points of view. And maybe we can understand our different points of view better. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. I think, and Shimon, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what Shimon and some of us are saying is by using Trump mass deranged Trump mass syndrome, whatever it might be, you are immediately excluding from reading your post the people who you might want to have read your post and be influenced. They're going to see that and just go, "Oops, I'm out of here."
I'll respond
Yeah.
just briefly. Sorry, Jesse, just for a second. I'm not really concerned about whether my paradigm will be accepted or not. What I'm concerned about is whether we're going to become a fascist country. And if you understand the roots of populism, it's about us and them. And right now, you talk about Fox News, you talk about all these different things. The basic foundation of psychological roots for populism and then going to fascism is to create another. And by calling someone deranged or whatever, you're not really doing anything to bring people and push them away from this dichotomy. It's us and them. And there is no greater joy for people who read your article and to see the first line, Trump derangement system, to know that you have been infected emotionally by this issue of Trump. You know, think about it. How much of your energy writing these articles instead of trying to write something maybe more resacularizing, you're spending on Trump derangement. I mean, and I really think if you look at the history of mass psychology of fascism, that's what's done. You create two groups, you infuse it with emotion, you give them ways to attack each other physically and otherwise. And before you know it, doesn't matter what you say, you have power over other people. And I see that in Israel, and I see that here. And I think you're calling someone deranged, just like people calling Bibi Netanyahu deranged and all that is true, but it's not leading to a very beneficial moving forward towards a more democratic society.
Thank you, Shimon. Rick, you're muted.
Yeah, if
Well, we shouldn't really have that. I mean, I really want to hear what Jesse has
Okay,
to say.
go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jesse.
Words have energy. You either are feeling good about them or you're feeling bad about them, and that pretty much is the message that you're accelerating. And I am. So be careful with words. I believe that purpose is born out of community. And who you hang out with is going to get charged. That purpose will be charged. So be careful who you hang out with. I really love your idea of the talk that you're bringing up, Shimon, that is about place-based solutions, because we've lost that, because we have access to the entire internet and world, and we're on these computers and we feel agency, but we feel disempowered at the same time. But I know when I'm feeling the most agency is I'm off the computer and I'm with people talking about how we're going to help housing in our zip code, the food bank, our own backyard. And that's when I feel the most agency and the most empowered, because I know that I'm interfacing with people that really do care. I think that the idea of visualizing shared goals, people in a space of shared goals, I think that's the solution I'm working on. Because when people can see things like cells coming together into like organisms and bodies of their own. And they're going, oh, there are other people who are in tune with this way of being or this solution, this particular solution. There's agency there, there's power there. And so if we have a mechanism that continues to help us use language that's empowering and be with people that really do care the same things that you do or I do, I think that's where I can contribute. So off this call, if anybody wants to connect and really visualize the community of a place-based and what those shared goals are, I'm all for that. Please reach out.
So
Thanks.
for Shimon, I know you're working in Pennsylvania. I want to mention two organizations that are doing positive things you may want to look into. One is Camp Hill Village, Kimperton Hills. And what they are is a residence for disabled people, and they do agriculture. So these people learn farming skills, and it seems like a win-win. And another one is the Chester Children's Chorus, which is in Chester, PA, and this was a way to get people, the young children involved in singing and preparing musical productions. And the impact it's had on that community is just amazing. There's videos online. So yeah, if you want more information, let me know.
I think those experiences are not as well known because it's easier to look at negative stuff.
Right.
I think that we need to look at what's called anchors in communities, like libraries, like churches, like singing groups, like sports, events, and really not take them over, but just look at how to make people's lives better and support each other. I mean, I think that the Dewey, someone was talking about the educational system, the Dewey educational system, I don't know how many of you are very familiar with. I know Jerry's going to put a Wikipedia link to Dewey educational system, but that's what it was talking about. And think about libraries helping people with artificial intelligence that then focuses on their community, how to track the toxic level, how to track, like things that, like in my mind, I live in a community actually very close to Camp Hill, that the council person is Republican, but does his community know exactly what he's voting on and the implication for them? Mostly no. How can we bring that to people's consciousness? And that's where I think that journalism, the media, I mean, someone mentioned Fox News. Come on, give me a break. I mean, I'm reading the New York Times, Washington Post, all these other ones that are kilo, I'm talking in Hebrew now, as if they're more objective, and they're all trying to make money. So you look at podcasts, you look at all these, they're trying to survive financially, and they're gonna like do their algorithms, and they're gonna evoke whatever position. So I think there needs to be a different concept of a press, of journalism.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I saw, like in the Chester County Library, they have citizen science programs. So little pamphlets for how people can measure things and learn science as they're going. So there's
That's
a
a
lot
program
of
of
good.
the National
uh,
Library of Medicine. That's a program, a national program
okay,
that no one takes advantage of almost unless they're aware of it.
right. So there is a lot of good going on. It's got to be elevated. And
Rick.
Yeah, just I'd like to, maybe we can have a conversation offline, Simone, if you want to. Maybe you don't, but that's fine. But what I will point out is the blog post that I did share, it was carefully constructed. And if you look at it, the first question focuses on how we can develop equity metagovernance, which is a positive paradigm, and it's defined. And as I said, we need to also deconstruct the old paradigm. And I only wish if you constructed a positive paradigm, it would get rid of the old negative paradigm. I am not optimistic about that. And I think you have to be proactive in deconstructing the old, which means that you have to be able to describe things and phenomena in such a way that people understand how their cultural milieu has shaped their mindsets. And our educational system does not equip people with critical thinking skills. And so I agree with you. You know, we need to revamp, bring out some of the old style education stuff that never really saw the light of day, particularly emancipatory learning, and design our educational systems. I can't say, you know, in the book, Hidden Talent, Adam Grant highlights Finland as one of the leading educational countries in the world. But interesting enough, if you read I mean, there's many Southeast Asian countries, Singapore, that are mimicking it, and actually Finland has gone down the ranking. So, I mean, it's really how do we educate people to be engaged, active, free-thinking citizens? And we don't do that. We don't talk about, you know, civics. Civics isn't taught. And so it comes back to education. So as much as I'd rather not have to use this term, there is a benefit to paradoxical interventions. Paradoxical interventions have it that polarizes people, but it's not the end of the story. Some people get worse, some people break away. And so you're trying to chip away at some of the people. You're not going to convince the hardcore MAGA supporters. It's a lost cause. It's going to take a long time. I mean, people have been indoctrinated watching Fox News for 3 years. Their brain chemistry, physiology, functioning has changed, and they've got PET scans showing how the brain function changes. So, you know, I see this more as a public health issue, not a psychiatric one. And so we need.
Well, I would love to have a conversation offline with you to
I think
Jerry's point about changing a topic that we would like to talk about. I think that I came on after October 7th talking about the emotional response that personally I had. I don't know how many of you were on that call, related to a friend of ours that was killed in the initial whatever. And today, I mean, obviously, is a whole different picture with the Iranian-Israeli war. And I just wanted to share with this group that you were mentioning June, 19th, the significance here. But my son was actually born in Soroka Hospital on June 19th, today, in 83. And today, if you have watched the news, that hospital was completely destroyed. So I'm not sure. I mean, certainly we don't want to, engage in conversation like that, obviously with a few minutes, but it goes back to education. And you got like 5 players there that are educating their kids to fundamentalist beliefs. And I think we're talking about, what we're talking about. And in the US, the same thing is starting to happen, where the American ambassador to Israel, his point of view is that, God gave the land to Israel. And few Congress people believe that. And I think that perhaps is another great threat in terms of the changes that may or may not happen moving forward.
Thanks, Sinan. Klaus.
Yeah, I think I shared before that my daughter married a young man from Tel Aviv, and We have had, sort of a rough time to work our way together. Well, today, my daughter and I are working on creating a company, and we have, just an amazing relationship now. She also voted for Trump, and so did her husband and the entire group. There is the Jewish Community Center in Nashville. There's a lot of Israeli Jewish folks, which are distinctly different from American Jewish. But we found ways to talk, right? There are topics we avoid, and the core element that unites us is that we love each other, right? And so also my relationship with my son-in-law is just amazing, right? We started really rough, and now we are a family. And so the conversations that we hold with people from different beliefs, and whether that's Fox News or whatever you want to call it, I think we need to really carefully avoid conflicts, or instead of saying avoid conflicts, is seek points of agreement. Seek topics that we share and can talk about, and we all share, wanting to have a wholesome family and make a secure life and all of those things. My wife just had a conversation with someone we used to be very close with. And they moved to Houston, Texas some years ago, and their entire perspective has changed so much. And she got sucked into this conversation about politics, and it destroyed their relationship. It just created a split. So to anticipate, that there are differences you can't touch. It's almost like an electric shock, right? You put your finger on this nerve, and it's a screech. So don't put your finger on that nerve, right? Step back from it and seek ways of alignment. And I think that is also what Shimon is trying to say, right? Seek areas of agreement. Seek topics where we can connect. What are the connecting points? Because once two connecting points come about, then you can build trust in your relationship. And once people trust you, then you can eventually say things, that are not political, but that are just, things that we all need to have a successful life.
Thanks, Klaus. We're getting near the end of our call time. Gil?
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Klaus, thanks very much for that. I was really struck by something you said early on there, talking about the disagreements you have with people in your family. You said, but we love each other. And what if all conversations could start there? Even with people who we violently disagree with, if we could start with, but we love each other, or, or at least we care about each other, or at least maybe we're curious about each other. I'm in the process of training myself out of the reaction of what a stupid thing you just said, which is, I don't say that out loud, but I often have that reaction to people. Like, how could you be so dumb as to believe that Trump arrangements, all of the judgments you might imagine, to train myself out of that into, oh, it's interesting that you see this so differently than me. I'm curious to know more about why that is and how you came to that. And the agenda, if there is any, is to really listen for what people really care about, not what their position is, not what their strategy is, not what their interpretation is, but what they really care about, because that's where I find the possibility, Klaus, as you were saying, of finding some common ground. Not to get to the common ground through the ideas or the issues, but to the common ground through what we care about, and then have a conversation like for possibility of, okay, given that we have this common concern and different perspectives, what might be possible for us to do together here? And for me, that holds a really fertile seed of possibility in the craziness of these times. So thanks, Klaus, for that.
Thanks, Gil. Rick, I think you're going to have the last word, and I would love to.
I'll be very brief. It's both and.
Okay.
I prefer the framing of middle ground to common ground. We don't have to go into that. And what you do at an individual level, I totally agree with you, Klaus. I wouldn't disagree with anything. On the other hand, at a systemic political level, it's different. When you're living in a toxic culture, how do you deal with that? And I only wish love could see the way and clean out the toxicity. And there are examples where there have been disruptive political activism, like AIDS, or if you take the Orange Revolution, where people got up en masse and they decided this is not, this is unacceptable. So it's both and I don't disagree with you, Klaus, at all. And I agree with you, Gil, on this point as well. But I'm afraid I wish love was good enough. But I don't
Well,
think
you know,
it is.
killing each other isn't good enough.
No, I didn't say that either, but that's
I
what
know.
you said.
I know. That's what I just said.
Yeah.
We're unlikely to resolve this
Oh no,
question in the next
this
couple minutes,
is
but
healthy disagreements. Healthy disagreements.
yeah.
Real quick,
Please go
Jerry,
ahead, Steve.
how come you're so pessimistic? We can resolve
Okay, go ahead. No, never mind. Interrupt the call. Stacy.
yeah, real quickly. The other day when we were on a call and I said that I found you guys to be in the middle, I used the word middle, and I saw you bristle at first until I went on to explain. I just want to clarify more that for me, the middle is where the richness is. The middle is the place of balance. So it was not a negative thing when I said you guys fit in the middle. Do you remember that? Okay, because I did see a reaction in you. So I just wanted to say that the center is often a really good place to start. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. We're a tiny bit over time, but I don't know that I'm looking for volunteers to read Langston Hughes' poem because it's Juneteenth.
I'll
And
read
if
it.
anybody would like to step in,
I'll
Gil, I
read
just
it.
put the link to it in the chat. Thank you.
Is it long?
No, it's not that long.
Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where he himself is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme, that any man be crushed by one above. It never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land where liberty is crowned with no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free. Equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark, and who are you that draws your veil across the stars? I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same stupid plan of dog eat dog, of mighty crush the weak. I am the young man full of strength and hope, tangled in that endless chain of profit, power, gain, of grab the land, of grab the gold, of grab the ways, of satisfying need, of work the men, of take the pay, of owning everything for one's own greed. I am the farmer, bondsman to the soil. I am the worker sold to the machine. I am the Negro, servant to you all. I am the people, humble, hungry, mean, hungry yet today despite the dream, beaten yet today. Oh, pioneers, I am the man who never got ahead, the poorest worker bartered through the years. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong, so brave, so true, that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, in every furrow turned, that's made America the land it has become. Oh, I'm the man who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea, and torn from black Africa's strand I came to build a homeland of the free. The free? Who said the free? Not me? Surely not me? The millions on relief today, the millions shot down when we strike, the millions who have nothing for our pay. For all the dreams we've dreamed and all the songs we've sung and all the hopes we've held and all the flags we've hung. The millions who have nothing for our pay except the dream that's almost dead today. Oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet and yet must be. The land where every man is free. The land that's mine, the poor man's, Indians, Negroes, me, who made America, whose sweat and blood, whose faith and pain, whose hand at the foundry, whose plow in the rain must bring back our mighty dream again. Sure, call me any name. Sure, call me any ugly name you choose. The steel of freedom does not stain. From those who live like leeches on the people's lives, we must take back our land again. America. Oh, yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me. And yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the wrack and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we, the people, must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains and the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Not easy to read, man.
Yeah, that I was sort of
You read it
thinking that.
beautifully and very powerfully.
Thank
Yes, you
It's-
did.
Amazing.
You're helping
actually-
that land.
It was actually hard to get through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be
Let's
well,
keep that
everyone.
in our hearts. Yeah. Thanks, Jesse.
Hmm.
Bye.